You're falling. Not metaphorically falling behind on your mortgage payments, or literally falling for that person who texts back 3 days later with sorry. Just saw this. No, I'm talking about actually falling through space, through time, through the very fabric of what you thought reality was supposed to be. Here's the thing about falling that nobody tells you in physics class. It's not the falling that kills you. It's the sudden stop. But what if there was no stop? What if you just kept falling forever? Would that be better or worse than hitting the ground? See, most people think nightmares are about monsters under the bed or showing up to work naked. Classic anxiety dreams that our overworked brains conjure up while we're drooling on our pillows. But the really messed up dreams? The ones that stick with you long after your morning coffee has kicked in? Those are the ones where the laws of physics take a vacation, where your subconscious decides to play cosmic joke after cosmic joke on your sleeping mind. I had one of those dreams last Tuesday. And before you roll your eyes thinking this is just another, let me tell you about my weird dream story. Trust me, I hate those people too. The ones who corner you at parties with 45 minutes of rambling about how they were simultaneously a dolphin and their third-grade teacher while riding a bicycle made of cheese. No, this is different. This dream made me question everything I thought I knew about reality, consciousness, and whether the universe has a sixth sense of humor. It involved an endless cliff, a talking physicist, and the disturbing realization that maybe, just maybe, our entire existence is one big cosmic pratfall. You know that feeling when you're almost asleep and suddenly feel like you're falling, so you jolt awake with your heart racing? Scientists call it a hypnic jerk, which sounds like what you call someone who corrects your grammar on social media. But what if that falling sensation isn't your brain misfiring? What if it's a memory? What I'm about to tell you happened in a dream, but it felt more real than most of my waking hours. More real than sitting in traffic. More real than pretending to work while scrolling through social media. More real than nodding along when someone explains cryptocurrency for the 1,000th time. This dream had weight to it, literally and figuratively. So buckle up, because we're about to explore what happens when your subconscious mind decides to enroll you in an advanced course in existential dread, with a minor in theoretical physics, and a surprising amount of dark comedy thrown in for good measure. And who knows, by the end of this, you might just find yourself questioning whether you're falling right now. After all, how would you really know if you were? The dream started the way most good stories do, with me doing something incredibly stupid. I was hiking alone on a mountain trail that looked suspiciously like every stock photo ever labeled adventure or personal growth. You know the type. Impossibly blue sky, conveniently placed rocks for dramatic poses, and the kind of pristine wilderness that makes you wonder where all the bear poop went. But here's where dream logic kicks in with both feet. Instead of following the clearly marked trail like a rational human being, I decided to take what appeared to be a shortcut. Because apparently, even in my dreams, I'm the kind of person who thinks they know better than centuries of hikers who carved out the actual path. Classic human arrogance. We'll choose the unknown over the proven every single time. The shortcut led me to a cliff. Not just any cliff, mind you, but the kind of cliff that makes the Grand Canyon look like a sidewalk crack. Looking down, I couldn't see the bottom. Not because it was too far away or shrouded in mist like some dramatic movie scene, but because there literally wasn't one. It was like someone had taken a cosmic ice cream scoop and just removed the bottom half of the world. Now, in a normal dream, this would be where I either sprout wings and fly away, or wake up in a cold sweat. But no, my subconscious had other plans. I leaned forward, just a little bit, just to get a better look, and the edge crumbled away like a stale cookie. And that's when the falling began. At first, it was exactly what you'd expect. The stomach-dropping sensation, the wind whipping past my face, the complete terror of knowing you're about to become a human pancake. But after what felt like several minutes of free fall, something strange happened. The terror faded. Not because I had accepted my fate. I'm not that emotionally mature. But because I started to realize that this wasn't following normal falling rules. For starters, I wasn't accelerating anymore. You know how when you drop something, it keeps getting faster and faster until it hits the ground? Yeah, that wasn't happening. I had reached what felt like a comfortable cruising speed and just stayed there. Like the universe had decided that terminal velocity was more of a suggestion than a law. Then there was the air. Normally, when you're falling from a great height, The air gets thinner, right? Your ears pop, breathing becomes difficult. All that fun high-altitude stuff. But I was breathing just fine. In fact, I was breathing better than I had in years. No allergies, no city smog, just pure, clean air that tasted like it had never been inside anyone else's lungs. That's when I noticed I wasn't alone. About 50 feet to my left, there was a man in a white lab coat, falling at exactly the same speed as me. He appeared to be in his 60s, with the kind of wild Einstein hair that screams, "I've spent my life thinking about things that would make your brain hurt." He was holding a clipboard and seemed to be taking notes while falling through an endless void. He noticed me staring and waved cheerfully, as if falling through infinite space was the most normal thing in the world. "First time?" he called out, somehow making himself heard despite the wind that should have been roaring past us. "First time what?" I shouted back. "Falling off the edge of existence. It's quite common, actually. Happens to about 30% of dreamers at some point in their lives. I'm Dr. Morrison, theoretical physicist and part-time dream consultant. Well, I used to be theoretical. Now I'm more experiential." This was already weird enough to make me question my sanity. But dream logic has a way of making the impossible seem perfectly reasonable. Of course there would be a physicist falling through the void. Of course he'd have a clipboard. Of course this was apparently a thing that happened to other people. "So," I called out, trying to sound casual while plummeting through an endless abyss, "how long does this usually last?" Dr. Morrison consulted his clipboard, flipping through several pages of notes. "That's the interesting part," he replied. "Time doesn't really work the same way here. You could fall for what feels like years, or wake up after what seems like minutes. But here's the kicker. While you're falling, you have all the time in the world to think. Really think. About everything." And that's when it hit me. Not the ground. There wasn't one. But the realization that this endless fall was about to become the most philosophical experience of my life. Dr. Morrison was right about one thing. I definitely had time to think. What I didn't expect was that all that thinking would lead me to question the very nature of reality itself. "So," I said, adjusting to the bizarre reality of having a conversation while falling through an infinite void, "what exactly are you taking notes on?" Dr. Morrison held up his clipboard with the enthusiasm of a kid showing off a crayon drawing. "Oh, this. I'm documenting the existential crisis patterns of falling dreamers." "Fascinating stuff, really. Did you know that 93% of people who fall off the edge of reality in their dreams start questioning the nature of existence within the first hour?" It's been an hour. Time's relative here. Could be minutes, could be millennia. Einstein was right about that, though he never got to experience it quite like this. He paused, scribbling something down. "Speaking of which, you should start experiencing the first wave of existential dread right about now." As if on cue, my brain decided to betray me. Suddenly, I was acutely aware of everything. Not just the falling, though that was still happening, but everything. Like, why was I falling? Why was there an edge to fall off? Why did reality have edges at all? "Here's the thing about existence," Dr. Morrison continued, apparently reading my mind. "Most people never really think about it. They wake up, brush their teeth, go to work, watch Netflix, sleep, repeat. They never stop to ask the big questions. Why is there something instead of nothing? Why do we exist? Why does anything exist?" I wanted to argue with him, to say that I thought about deep things all the time. But honestly, my deepest thoughts usually revolve around whether I should have pizza or tacos for dinner. And even then, I usually ended up getting both. But here, he gestured around at the endless nothingness surrounding us. Here you can't avoid it. There's no distractions, no social media, no responsibilities pulling your attention away. Just you, the void, and the uncomfortable questions you've been avoiding your entire life. And damn if he wasn't right. As we fell, my mind started spiraling, not from fear, but from the sheer weight of existence itself. Why did I matter? Did I matter? In a universe that was supposedly billions of years old and incomprehensibly vast, what was the point of my tiny, brief life? "Ah," Dr. Morrison observed, "you're entering the cosmic insignificance phase. Very common, usually followed by either acceptance or a desperate search for meaning." "This is insane," I muttered, more to myself than to him. "Is it though?" he asked. "Think about it. You spend your entire life on a spinning rock hurtling through space at thousands of miles per hour, orbiting a massive ball of nuclear fire in a galaxy that's racing away from other galaxies in an expanding universe that might be one of infinite universes. And you think this is insane. He had a point. When you really think about it, really, truly think about it, normal life is absolutely bonkers. We just don't notice because we're all participating in the same collective delusion that any of it makes sense. Plus, he added, there's something liberating about falling forever. No deadlines, no expectations, no pressure to be productive or successful or happy. Just falling. It's like the ultimate meditation retreat, except instead of sitting quietly, you're plummeting through existential space. That's when I noticed something odd. Despite falling for what felt like hours, I wasn't tired. My legs didn't ache, my back wasn't sore, I wasn't hungry or thirsty. It was like all the basic human maintenance requirements had been temporarily suspended. Side effect of dream physics, Dr. Morrison explained. Your body doesn't actually need anything here because it's not really here. You're experiencing existence as pure consciousness. No biological imperatives, no chemical needs. Just the raw experience of being aware. So what am I then? If my body isn't here, but I'm still me? Now you're asking the right questions. He scribbled excitedly on his clipboard. What exactly are you? Are you your body? Your brain? Your memories? Your personality? Strip all that away, and what's left? This was getting uncomfortably deep. I'd taken philosophy classes in college, but this was different. This wasn't abstract theorizing. This was experiencing the questions firsthand. Here's what I think, Dr. Morrison continued. I think consciousness is like falling. Most of the time, we don't notice we're doing it because we're distracted by all the scenery rushing past. But in dreams, especially dreams like this, you get to experience consciousness in its pure form. Just awareness, falling through the experience of being aware. That's either really profound or complete nonsense, I replied. Why not both? The universe seems to have a sense of humor about these things. I mean, we're having a philosophical discussion while falling through a void that shouldn't exist, in a dream that feels more real than most of my waking life. If that's not cosmic comedy, I don't know what is. He was right about the humor aspect. There was something absurdly funny about the whole situation. Here I was, having an existential crisis while literally falling off the edge of reality, guided by a physicist who somehow had access to research data about dream falling statistics. It was like a Monty Python sketch written by someone who'd read too much Nietzsche. The thing is, Dr. Morrison said, his voice taking on a more serious tone, most people who have this dream never talk about it. They wake up, shake their heads, and try to forget. But the questions it raises, they stick around, lurking in the back of your mind, making you wonder about things you never wondered about before. Like what? Like whether reality is really real. Like whether consciousness is something that happens to matter, or if matter is something that happens to consciousness. Like whether the universe is fundamentally meaningful or fundamentally absurd. He paused. Or whether the answer is yes. That's when I realized we weren't just falling through space. We were falling through ideas, through possibilities, through all the questions that don't have easy answers. And somehow, that made it both more terrifying and more wonderful than any nightmare I'd ever had. But just when I thought I was starting to understand the rules of this impossible place, Dr. Morrison showed me something that would completely reshape my understanding of what falling really meant. Want to see something really wild? Dr. Morrison asked, tucking his clipboard under his arm with the practiced ease of someone who'd apparently been falling for a very long time. Before I could answer, he did something that should have been impossible. He swam through the air toward me, not flailing around like people do in water, but actually swimming with purpose and grace, as if the void around us had substance. How are you doing that? Dream physics, he explained as he reached me. Once you understand that none of the normal rules apply here, you can start working with the rules that do. Here, take my hand. I grabbed his outstretched hand and immediately felt something incredible. We were still falling, but now we were falling together, synchronized like some kind of cosmic dance partners. Now look around, he said. Really look, not just at the emptiness, but through it. I squinted into the void, expecting to see more nothing. But slowly, like my eyes were adjusting to darkness, I began to notice things. Patterns in the nothingness. currents of something flowing past us as we fell. What am I seeing? The infrastructure of dreams, Dr. Morrison replied matter-of-factly. Most people think empty space is empty, but it's not. It's full of potential, possibility, probability waves. You're seeing the underlying structure that holds all the what-ifs together. As we fell, I started to make out more details. There were streams of light, not visible light, but something my dream brain interpreted as light, flowing in complex patterns around us. Some streams were wide and bright, others were thin and flickering. They moved like rivers, like weather systems, like living things. Each stream represents a different possible reality, Dr. Morrison explained. Look, there's the stream where you became a professional athlete. There's the one where you moved to Japan. That big bright one over there? That's the reality where you actually called that person you had a crush on in high school instead of just thinking about it for 3 years. This is impossible. Everything's impossible until it happens. And in dream logic, everything happens until it becomes impossible. He pointed to a particularly twisted stream of light. That one's my personal favorite. The reality where humanity discovered that the universe is actually a massive experiment being conducted by interdimensional graduate students, and we're all just lab rats who developed the ability to contemplate the maze. I stared at the streams of possibility flowing around us, and something clicked in my brain. Are we falling through all of these realities? Bingo! Every dream is a journey through the multiverse of might-have-beens. Most people just experience it as random weirdness, but if you know how to look, he gestured at the impossible vista surrounding us. It's actually quite organized. That's when I noticed we weren't alone in the void. Other figures were falling too, scattered throughout the endless space like seeds on the wind. Some fell solo, some in pairs or groups. Some seemed to be fighting the fall, struggling against something they couldn't control. Others, like us, appear to be having conversations. Who are all these people? Other dreamers. Other consciousness exploring the space between what is and what could be. Dr. Morrison waved at a woman falling about 100 yards away. She waved back. That's Professor Chun. She's a marine biologist who discovered that octopuses dream in colors that don't exist. Fascinating research on the subjective experience of non-human consciousness. Wait, are you telling me this place is real? Like, actually real? Define real. Dr. Morrison shrugged. Is it made of atoms? No. Can you measure it with scientific instruments? Probably not. Does it exist as a shared experience that affects the people who encounter it? Absolutely. As if to prove his point, a school of what I can only describe as dreamfish swam past us. They weren't quite fish, more like living equations that had decided to be aquatic. They moved in perfect formation, their mathematical fins propelling them through the conceptual water of possibility. The ecosystem here is fascinating, Dr. Morrison continued, pulling out his clipboard again. You've got your basic dream fauna, the anxiety monsters, the flying anxiety releases, the symbolic representatives of unresolved childhood issues. But then you also have the more exotic species. A creature that looked like a geometric pattern, having an existential crisis drifted by, pulsing with colors that somehow conveyed pure emotion. That's a temporal paradox, Dr. Morrison explained. They feed on contradictions and grow stronger when people try to logic their way out of dream scenarios. Beautiful creatures, really, though they can cause headaches if you get too close. I was beginning to understand that this wasn't just falling, this was exploration. We were tourists in the landscape of possibility, anthropologists studying the culture of dreams, marine biologists documenting the life forms that exist in the space between sleeping and waking. But here's the really interesting part, Dr. Morrison said, his voice taking on the excitement of someone sharing their life's work. The longer you spend here, the more you realize that the line between dreaming and waking isn't as clear as we thought. Your brain is doing the same thing when you're awake, processing infinite streams of possibility, selecting one probable reality out of countless alternatives, constructing a coherent experience out of quantum chaos. So you're saying waking life is just a dream with more consistent rules. I'm saying consciousness is the universe's way of experiencing itself subjectively, and dreams are just a version with the safety protocols turned off. He pointed to a stream of light that was pulsing in rhythm with my heartbeat. Look, that one's connected to you. That's the stream of your actual life, your real reality. Notice how it's not that different from the others. Just more stable, more consistent. I looked at my reality stream and felt a strange mix of comfort and unease. It was beautiful, but also limited, compared to the wild, chaotic possibility streams around it. My actual life seemed almost boring. That's the trade-off, Dr. Morrison said, reading my expression. Stability versus possibility. Safety versus adventure. The known versus the unknown. Most people choose the stable stream because it's predictable, manageable. But some people, he gestured at the dreamers falling around us. Some people need to explore the other streams occasionally, to remember that reality is a choice, not a given. A massive creature swam past us then, something like a whale made of pure music, its song creating ripples in the fabric of dream space itself. As its melody washed over us, I felt something profound, the deep, ancient loneliness of consciousness trying to understand itself, and the joy of realizing it's not alone. The Leviathans, Dr. Morrison whispered reverently. They're the oldest dream forms, the first thoughts the universe had about thinking. Some say they're the dreams that galaxies have when they spin through space for billions of years. We watched in awed silence as the creature swam away into the infinite, its song gradually fading into the background hum of existence itself. Dr. Morrison, I said finally, how do I know this isn't just my brain making all this up? How do I know you're not just a figment of my imagination? He smiled, and for a moment, his face seemed to flicker between his familiar features and something else, something vast and ancient and amused. Does it matter? He asked. If I'm a figment of your imagination, then your imagination is far more interesting than you gave it credit for. And if I'm something else, well, then the universe is far stranger and more wonderful than most people dare to believe. The truth hit me like a revelation. It didn't matter. Real or imagined, this experience was changing how I thought about everything. And maybe that was the point. As we continued our impossible journey through the streams of possibility, I began to realize that the most important question wasn't whether this was real. It was what I was supposed to do with the knowledge I was gaining. So, I asked as we continued our eternal descent through the possibility streams, does this ever end? Do we ever actually land somewhere? Dr. Morrison chuckled, a sound that somehow carried perfectly through the conceptual wind. That's the beautiful irony of it all. The landing isn't about reaching the bottom. It's about understanding that there is no bottom. The moment you truly grasp that you're falling through infinity, you stop falling and start flying. That sounds like New Age nonsense. Everything sounds like nonsense until it becomes your personal truth, he replied. But let me show you what I mean. He let go of my hand and began to slow down, not by grabbing onto anything or flapping his arms, but by simply deciding to slow down, like he was adjusting his personal gravity settings. The secret, he called out as I continued falling past him, is realizing that falling and flying are the same thing, just with different intentions. I tried to slow down myself, concentrating on the idea of not falling. Nothing happened. I kept plummeting at the same steady rate. You're trying too hard. Dr. Morrison's voice carried down to me. You can't logic your way out of falling. You have to feel your way out. What does not falling feel like? What a ridiculous question. But as I thought about it, I realized I didn't know what not falling felt like. It felt like those moments in life when everything just worked. When I was so absorbed in something I loved that I forgot about gravity, forgot about time, forgot about everything except the pure joy of existing in that moment. The moment I connected with that feeling, I began to slow down. There you go. Dr. Morrison cheered as I gradually matched his slower descent. You're getting it. The falling was never the problem. The problem was believing you were powerless to change it. As I hung there in the void, no longer plummeting but not quite flying either, I felt a profound shift in my understanding. This whole experience, the endless cliff, the fall through possibility streams, the philosophical conversations with a dream physicist, it wasn't about the falling at all. It was about learning to navigate uncertainty without panic. Most people, Dr. Morrison continued, spend their lives terrified of falling. Falling behind, falling down, falling apart, falling in love, falling out of love. But here's the thing. Falling is just another way of moving through space. It's only scary if you think there's supposed to be solid ground beneath you. Around us, I could see other dreamers beginning to figure out too. The woman Dr. Morrison had waved at earlier was now swimming gracefully through the streams of possibility, exploring different potential realities like an interdimensional tourist. A man who had been struggling against his fall was now laughing as he surfed the probability waves. So what happens when we wake up? I asked. That's the real question, isn't it? Dr. Morrison pulled out his clipboard one final time. According to my research, people who have this dream fall into three categories. Some wake up and forget everything, dismissing it as just another weird dream. Others wake up terrified, convinced they've experienced something they shouldn't have. But the third group? What about the third group? They wake up and remember that life itself is just another form of falling. They realize that uncertainty isn't something to be avoided. It's the natural state of existence. And once you accept that, once you really internalize it, you start to see possibilities everywhere. As he spoke, I could feel something changing. The dream space around us was beginning to lighten, becoming less solid, more translucent. The streams of possibility were fading, becoming whispers instead of rivers. Time to go, Dr. Morrison said with a gentle smile. But before you wake up, remember this. Every time you feel like you're falling in waking life, whether it's a career setback, a relationship ending, or just the general anxiety of being human in an uncertain world, you now know that falling and flying are just different perspectives on the same movement through space. I felt myself beginning to drift away from him, back toward the surface of consciousness. Will I see you again? Every time you dream, he called out as the distance between us grew. And every time you remember that the ground beneath your feet is just another illusion, another form of falling that happens to feel stable. The last thing I saw before waking was Dr. Morrison writing something on his clipboard, surrounded by the fading streams of possibility, still falling, but no longer concerned about landing. I woke up in my own bed, heart racing, but not from fear, from excitement. The dream was already beginning to fade around the edges, but the core insight remained crystal clear. I had spent my whole life afraid of falling, when I should have been learning to fly. And for the first time in years, instead of immediately checking my phone or worrying about my to-do list, I lay there in bed and marveled at the simple miracle of consciousness itself. This impossible phenomenon of being aware, of experiencing, of existing in a universe that by all rights should just be empty space and floating rocks. Maybe Dr. Morrison was right. Maybe we're all just falling through infinity, and the trick is learning to enjoy the ride. I never did hit the ground in that dream, but I landed anyway, somewhere much more interesting than solid Earth. I landed in a new understanding of what it means to be human in an uncertain universe. The funny thing about existential revelations is that they don't always change your life dramatically. I still go to work, still worry about bills, still spend too much time on social media. But now, underneath all the mundane anxiety of daily existence, there's this quiet awareness that it's all just elaborate falling. And somehow, that makes everything both more absurd and more beautiful. Sometimes, when I'm lying in bed at night, I can still feel it, that sensation of falling through infinite possibility. But instead of terror, I feel something like gratitude. Gratitude for the mystery of consciousness, for the privilege of being aware in a universe that spent billions of years getting ready for awareness to exist. Dr. Morrison was right about one thing. The questions stick with you, not as burdens, but as invitations to keep exploring, keep wondering, keep marveling at the impossible fact that anything exists at all. So the next time you feel like you're falling, whether it's off a cliff in a dream or just through the general uncertainty of being alive, remember that falling and flying are just different names for the same beautiful movement through space. The ground was never really there anyway. And if you found yourself thinking along while I told this story, if any of these ideas resonated with the part of you that sometimes wonders about the deeper mysteries of existence, well, maybe you've been falling all along too. After all, how would you really know if you weren't?